So I wore my Yuri on Ice shirt because, well, the title that I have for the video is like Justice Will Live or Justice Will Survive or whatever, based on what Garp says at the end of the chapter. I'm like, well, Garp has to fight Aokiji again, so I'm like, Garp on ice. Okay. um, so hence that joke there because I'm a child, and a manga slash anime dork. So, into the chapter. We're back from break. I do have a Black Clover video that is the review of the Black Clover movie, the Black Clover Sword of the Wizard King, and it is set to come out. The review, I was going to have it come up today because, like, depending on how the weeks fell, I wasn't sure if the chapter was going to be out or not for me to be able to do the video, so I do the review. So I just had that recorded ahead of time, so that will go up tomorrow. This is Back with One Piece. Yay for more chapters. So this one is chapter 1087, called Battleship Bags. Hey. And the cover page is, it's a viewer request again. It is Ace. Love Ace. Ace heating up a bath for a bunch of capybaras, which I loved capybaras anyway. I remember way back when I was a kid, we had the kids show on PBS that was Zaboomafoo. And I remember at one point in time they had like capybaras on there, and I thought they were so adorable. And if there was any type of an actual like rodent that I would ever debate about wanting to have for a pet, a capybara would be one of those things. um but Ace has like this little, drum thing, or not drum, this little, canister type thing, and he's got the capybaras sitting in it and everything. By the way, I believe capybaras actually really like hot spring baths. And they will like seek them out, or like different zoos or wildlife places where they have them in South America will set up like little hot spring baths for them, and capybaras are just adorable anyway. They're so cute. Into the chapter. So the beginning of the chapter takes place at a ship scrapyard at Navy Branch G1, which is the former Navy HQ in the on the Paradise side of the New World. And what we see is Brand New, who is kind of like the intelligence officer and everything like that, the one that generally, does all the explanations for like bounties and stuff like that. He is giving a tour of this area to what is revealed to be Full Body and Django. And actually, so last night when I was telling my mom about this chapter, she actually said, are there very many Marines that you actually like that you could like count off on your fingers? And I sat there and like I counted off like the different Marines off the top of my head, and then I pulled up the One Piece Wikipedia page that has like all the Marines listed, and I went through and like counted them, and I think I came up with like 20 that I actually like, and that includes like a few in regards to like, how canon they are type of a thing. And I'm like, there might be others, but the problems with those is we don't know exactly what kinds of like justice they stand for and stuff. And a good chunk of the Marines that I like are actually, showcased in the chapter, so we get that. But by the way, Full Body and Django weren't on the list of the Marines that I like. They're not bad. I just don't care for them. So we have Brand New talking with Full Body and Django, and Brand New says that these are ship bags, and Full Body and Django are like, you mean like punching bags? I mean, like, we see these Navy ships that are clearly ones that have definitely been in disrepair for a while, and they all have like these, fist-shaped marks in them, or like dents in them, huge dents in them, like something went and just like took a chunk out of the ship type dents. And Brand New is explaining that, yeah, this is where Garp, Vice Admiral Garp, and former Admiral Aokiji used to come and train. This is where, part of Garp's daily routine since he was young is coming here and, punching ships. Which, given everything that we've been told about Garp in his entire life, makes perfect sense. I'm like, yeah, no, this tracks. Yep, he punches ships. Yep, I can buy it. I believe it. He throws cannonballs, and they're just like launching out of a cannon, if not worse. So yes, I buy this entirely. Um, um, and yeah, that's what Brand New is explaining to them. And he's like, yeah, and at one point in time, Aokiji would come here as well and do the same thing and train with Garp. And they were not allowed to use hockey or devil fruit abilities or anything along those lines while they were trying to train on their battleship bags. And both, full body and Django are like, you mean like a punching bag, like a training punching bag. And kind of the thought that popped into my head, because I'm a Marvel dork, is in the first Avengers movie, our introduction to Cap is him standing there and punching, sandbags. And he keeps, punching them and breaking them and having to get new ones and everything. And because I love Chris Evans, and I'm trying to think of like, are there any like One Piece characters that like Chris Evans would be able to play, like if they ever got that far in the live action and it was big enough that he would be interested in it. And I don't know, but I would love to try to see him play either Doflamingo or Roshinate. And the thing is I think he could pull off both in that regard, because I'd love to see him as the villain, as Doflamingo, but then I'd also love to see him as like Roshinate in like, Law's flashback and everything. Like I would love both of those. Sidetracked, back to the story. Sorry. Really hoping that the One Piece live action ends up being good. I really hope it is. I plan on showing it to my mom. Actually, I asked her if she wanted to watch it with me, and she said yes. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, Brand New is just giving them the slight little information about what's going on there and everything. Yeah, and it's just like, he's like, yeah, just goes to show that no one's born a hero. It's strength you have to earn. Garp trained himself up to be as strong as he is. Aokiji did the same thing. Garp is as strong as he is without having any type of a devil fruit power. Aokiji, yes, he has his ice powers and everything, his Hia no Mi powers, but he's still exceedingly strong on his own, even without them. So, yeah, we get that. And we see how strong like Zoro and Sanji can be without even having any form of devil fruit powers to begin with. And then we have other ones that are like a lot stronger or a lot weaker, and they have devil fruits because they rely on them too much. So, it is about how much training and everything like that you can put into it as well. Then we cut to Hachinosu, and in the New World, where we see that San Juan Wolf has been tossed into the water. Revealed that he's just tossed into the water by Garp. Garp's just like, yeah, you're annoying. Flicks him into the water. Yeets San Juan Wolf into the water. And they're like, oh no, we gotta get him out of the water before he drowns and everything like that. And then we have Vasco Shot show up, and he ends up using one of his, his heavy drink or whatever, heat, hearth fire or something is what it says in the translation, where he just like, drinks a bunch of alcohol and then out and aims at Garp. I'm assuming he probably has like a lighter of some kind on him, or a match of some kind that he's blowing through, because it's very similar to like what fire breathers do, where they will, take, usually it's either like some form of alcohol or something along those lines that is a very flammable liquid, put it in their mouth, and then blow it through the torch they're using, or a match, or a lighter, or whatever. And as they're blowing out, it, lights on fire. That seems to be what Vasco Shot is doing here. I mean, he can control alcohol, so he can probably adjust the amounts of like how flammable it would be to make it that he can then just light it on fire a whole lot easy. Alcohol itself is already pretty flammable, and the more flames you add to it, or the more, I think it's the higher the alcohol content, the higher the flammability, I think. I don't know. I've never set alcohol on fire before. Surprisingly enough, I've never watched anyone in my family set alcohol on fire either, given how much my mom's side of the family loves to drink and do fireworks, which is what my 4th of July involved. So we have that, and everybody is just like, oh my god, and because it's Garp actually just grabbed a bunch of pirates and like use them as shields to like block the attack, and they all got set on fire. And then Garp just like throws them, like Molotov cocktails, throws them around the island and starts setting the rest of the island on fire. And we see the giant skeleton, the skull head that's part of Hachinosu that has Avala Pizarro controlling it, and he's just like, oh my god, how, because he's the island, so he's kind of getting set on fire in that regard. So we see that, and I'm just gonna be hilarious watching this giant skeleton, skull rock talk when we get to that in the anime. I'm kind of imagining it being similar to like the Cave of Wonders in Aladdin. And that would be kind of interesting to watch there, seeing how they do that. Um, so we have that, and we just, the island's on fire, and Garp is just like, yeah, this is great. And, everybody, Garp's just like having a fun time, and the rest of the pirates are just like, we have to stop the town from burning down, or Chief will get angry at us and kill us again. I was like, how often does your town get set on fire that this is an issue? And Garp is just having so much fun, and they're just like, everybody's just like, oh my god, we have to get away from the terrifying geezer. And then we cut just off the coast where we see the Garp's Navy ship trying to get away, and that has we see Kujaku, Tashigi, and Hibari, along with some of the other men that are probably just part of Garp's crew / possibly members of Sword that are there as well. We see pretty much a good chunk of the members of Sword in this chapter that we knew were already on the island and everything. And they're radioing back to Garp and telling him that all of the wounded, along with the escaped slaves, are all on the ship. We see that Hibari is being defrosted, or has slowly been defrosted already. We've already seen how the Straw Hats had to deal with that when both Robin and Luffy got frozen by Aokiji way back on Long Ring Longland. We saw that back then. And so Hibari has been defrosted. And she should be fine. And we see Tashigi is kind of the one taking care of her. And we need to get all of the, we need to thaw all the frozen people out slowly because we don't want to shock their systems and everything like that. I'm sure the Navy probably has like protocols for like, because I'm quite certain that during different types of training, Aokiji has probably frozen multiple people. Or just like when he captures someone, they get frozen in certain cases. So they need to like thaw the person out so they don't actually, cause like internal damage to the person. Going from extremely cold to extremely hot in that regard is not a good way. You're going to get frost burns and frostbite and burns in general all over you because it's not going to be good for how that works. And, the rest of the escaped ones are just like, is Captain Kobe okay and everything? And, we know that, Hibari's going to be having the same reaction in a minute. So it's like, we're ready to pull out whenever you are. We see on the island that Garp, Helmeppo, Kobe, and Prince Groose are still there, and they're the ones that are basically acting as like this, so the rest of the ship and the other members and the escapees can all escape. We do not see Moria or Perona in this chapter, or at least not as far as I can tell. So we don't see anything with them, so we have no idea where they are. But we see Prince Groose has used like his clay powers to make like a giant spiked mace, or a spiked club that he's like probably waving around and like trying to whack people. We see Helmeppo with his like curved blades and everything, and of course Kobe's using his kicks and Garp's using his punches and just like swinging the pirates around and using them as blunt force weapons because Garp. So, they're ready to pull out whenever it's time. And, Garp is, telling the others, come on, it's time to go and head out and everything. And, it's like time to start making their way toward the harbor so they can escape to the ship. Garp, Kobe, and Helmeppo, none of them have devil fruit powers, but Prince Groose does. But given Prince Groose's devil fruit powers with making clay, I was going to say maybe he could make something that they could like ride on to get back to the ship. But I'm like, I've worked with clay, and when it comes to water, that's not always the best combination, but it would depend on like how much finesse and control Prince Groose has on his devil fruit power in that regard, in being able to, create like a ship of some kind that he can like, that they could like float on at least far enough to get them to where the where Garp's ship is. That would be the thought there. But Garp was like, yeah, Hachinosu lives up to its reputation. These guys are coming, this place has no end to pirates. Again, this is a reference to, Full Island, Hachinosu, Beehive Island. You poke it and a bunch of bees come out. You poke the island of pirates and a bunch of pirates are going to come out and everything. And then we see Aokiji comes up, so he's back from when Garp knocked him into the blue hole, ice hole, whatever it was. And he's like, I can't just let you leave and everything. And then we have this nice little panel spread where we have Helmeppo is freaking out. And he's like, I should have gone with the others. We're doomed. Which, as much as Helmeppo has improved as a character over the course of the last 20-something years throughout the entire course of One Piece, he is still, to a degree, scared at times. And I do not blame him, because the same thing happens with Nami and Chopper and Usopp, even though they themselves have gotten so much stronger and so much braver. I would also be like, I'm going to go hide on the ship now if I was in any of their situations most of the time, because I do not have that level of courage. But, so we have, Helmeppo there, and then we have Groose kind of looking at Garp, and he's like, hey, Garp-san, am I also the future of the Marines? Because, Garp called, Kobe the future of the Marines, or that's what everybody kept calling Kobe and everything, and Garp doesn't answer. He's just like, he's just like glaring at Kuzan. He's like, you still want to go, Kuzan? And then Kobe is like, we can't underestimate the Titanic captains. And they all look fairly battle damaged. Garp's clothes are kind of in tatters a little bit. Kobe's are a little bit more in tatters. Neither Prince Groose nor Helmeppo, beyond probably some scuffs and stuff, don't really look like any of their outfits have gotten a whole lot of damage taken to them. But then again, Garp has never really been all that concerned about how he looks most of the time. But then again, from the little bit that we see of Prince Groose, he likes his giant fluffy jacket, which I am okay with, and I don't blame him. It's a nice jacket. So we have Garp telling them, listen up, you three, head straight to the coast and you'll be fine. So he's telling them to head out, and he's like, don't die on me now, you hear? And they're just like, yes, sir. And they're ready to, they're ready to head out. Then we see, as Kobe's running, we see one of the random pirates just grab this woman, and he's, she's like, someone help me and everything. And Odin, Momonosuke, Higurashi, flashback, anybody? Kobe is like, oh no, they still have a hostage. We have to save them and everything. And then, Prince Goose is like, Kobe, you idiot, it's a trap and everything. And the girl just starts laughing. And then we see a movement, and then Garp jumps in front of Kobe and gets stabbed through the gut. Very similar to how Whitebeard was stabbed by oh, frick, what was his name? Squard. I was like, I remember the name. Was stabbed by Squard way back at Marineford. Very similar to that. He pushes Kobe out of the way, and he takes the sword through the stomach, and it's Shiryu who, used his invisibility powers to probably tell the pirate to do this, and then, use that as a distraction to stab Garp. And then Garp rears back and then punches Shiryu into the ground. Which, yes, I approve. And he's like, yeah, you're that punk from Impel Down. So Garp probably knows exactly who Shiryu is. Garp probably had heard of Shiryu during his time as the Impel Down warden and everything, with his cruel, as cruel and harsh as, Shiryu was. Admittedly, Impel Down itself is already very cruel and unusual punishment. So what did he do that made it worse? I guess possibly torturing or hurting the different employees of Impel Down, but I don't know. So Shiryu gets knocked into the ground, and then everybody is just like, he's been stabbed, get him! It's like, Scarf's been stabbed, he's been weakened, get him now! And they're all just chasing after him and everything. And Kobe, Helmeppo, and Prince Goose are all exceedingly worried about Garp and everything. And Garp's like, this is nothing, go to the ship. And Kobe is like, oh no, this is my fault, you were protecting me. And, because Kobe is Kobe, and he's just very worried about Garp. Garp is his mentor, and he was his idol before he became his mentor, so we have that. And then we have, Garp is, don't falter, don't flatter yourself, Kobe. I was in his sights the whole time. So that just implies, just like when Moria showed up on Hachi no Su and they used Absalon as the distraction for Shiryu to come up and stab him. That just basically explains what, that's just the way that Shiryu fights. That's the way the Blackbeard pirates fight for the most part, is they will use whatever underhanded, uh, backstabbing, and whatever type of techniques to win. Most of the time, I'm sure that works out for them. But, given the way Blackbeard's entire life has been, he doesn't necessarily seem like the most honorable of person anyway. So the fact that most of the rest of his group are probably not very honorable to begin with, following that path makes perfect sense. So we have all of these different pirates on the island just start running at Garp and everything, get it, kill him, and you'll get wealth and glory and everything like that. And they're talking about like the cross guild bounty, and we see Garp's cross guild poster, which has like 3 crowns on it, as opposed to like I think we had like stars earlier, or like little treasure chests for the different ranks. So it's like he has a 3 crown bounty, which is the same as the admiral, given Garp's hero as the history as like the hero of the Marines. That makes perfect sense. And they're like, well, that's around 3 billion berries. Which I think, yeah, that. I mean, like, that is a lot. I was trying to remember I think that's the same as Luffy's bounty now. 3 billion berries, isn't it? I think. So, hey, Luffy, you and your grandpa are tied in this regard. And Aokiji shows up and he's like, out of the way, small fries, you guys won't stand a chance. Even if both of his arms and legs were tied, it's like, I'll fight you with one arm tied behind my back type of thing. That type of thing. It's like, yeah, Garp would still be a threat even if he did have both of his arms and legs all tied up and everything. He would just like headbutt you into, wherever the heck you land type of a thing. I still wouldn't put it past him. It's like he'll use his knees and his elbows if he has to. He's Garp, for crying out loud. And we see Aokiji like rear back and like gather up a whole bunch of power on his fist, and he's like ice glove, and it's clear he's getting ready to punch Garp. And then we get this little bit of like flashback where we get interactions between Garp and Aokiji over the years. So the first one that we get is clearly a much younger Garp and a much younger Aokiji. Now, I actually went through, because I did an Aokiji video at some point in time, so I had a bunch of his ages, and I was going to compare them to the ages that we had for Garp. Now, currently in the story, Aokiji is 49 years old, and Garp is 78 years old. So that is, oh god, math. 39-year difference? Hold on. 30, that's like a 30-some year age difference between the two of them. And in the flashback, what we see is it's like Garp is in the middle of his ship punching, and Aokiji shows up, and it's a much younger Aokiji. Also in this regard, we know that Garp joined the Marines when he was 22 years old. Aokiji joined the Marines when he was 19 years old. And I'm assuming this is probably not too long after Garp, or after Aokiji joined the Marines, because Garp is like, I don't want to teach you, go find someone else. And Aokiji is asking Garp if Garp would let him be like his disciple, his protege and everything. And Garp's just like, no, I like my freedom. Go talk to one of the other Navy instructors. And Aokiji's like, no, they've already taught me everything that they can. I need to get to the next level. Please make me your disciple. Now, given stuff that we've learned about Aokiji, some stuff recently, some stuff we've learned about him from like previous SBSs and things like that, his original type of justice was burning justice. And after everything that happened with Ohara, it became more, lazy justice. A little bit more of like, well, you haven't actually done anything wrong technically at the moment, so I'm going to let you go. We're going to say I took a nap and you wandered off. And that's how we see him act at Long Ring Longland when he interacts with Robin and the Straw Hats. This is clearly Aokiji, possibly before he kind of finds his full sense of justice, but he knows he wants to be a Marine. And this is a much younger Garp in the fact that it looks like, because I did do the math, and like Garp would have been, let's see here. Aokiji was 19 when he joined the Marines, as I said, and that was 30 years ago. So 30 years ago, Garp would have been 48. So this would have been before, this would have been before God Valley. Wait, no, this would have been after God Valley, but before, this would have been, okay. So I had figured out kind of the time frame that this lines up. This lines up around the same time frame that Garp and Qin Zhao had their big battle where Garp like caved in Qin Zhao's head with his fist. So let's not punch myself in the head. I don't need that. I already had a headache yesterday. So that's how that lands, is that it's around the same time that that fight would have happened. Is about 30 years ago. And which is after God Valley, but before Roger's execution by a couple of years. So Aokiji may have heard about God Valley, or may have heard about something about God Valley and Garp fighting against the Rocks pirates, and that may have inspired him to become a Marine. And that may be why he wants to go and be Garp's disciple, his protege and everything. And like Garp yelled at Aokiji to get lost, and Aokiji is just like, nope, and he like sticks around. So we have the scene where they have, them both training, and Garp's like, remember, no hockey. And Aokiji, who is like, this kind of skinny little kid compared to kind of what he turns into. Not that he's still not kind of skinny, but he's not as skinny. He's built up some muscle in this time frame. Gee, I wonder why. Punching ships will do that. And he's like, well, I couldn't use it even if I wanted to. Ouch! When he's like punching the ships and everything like that. And we can already see like the damage done to the ships because Garp's is already kind of concaved, whereas Aokiji's ship that he's punching isn't really all that different because he just kind of started. Also, I don't think we know, I don't think we've ever been told exactly when Aokiji gets his devil fruit power. I don't think we've ever been told that. It may have been something he had before he joined the Marines, and that may have been why he advanced so quickly, because by the time I think everything happens with Ohara 22 years ago, I think he is already a vice admiral at that point in time, I think. And then, of course, he becomes an admiral later on by the time we meet him in the story. So we have the two of them just like training, bam, 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 thud. And then we have this other moment where like Garp is like complaining, he's like, my son became a revolutionary, damn it, thud, bam, bam, just like more training. And I'm assuming this is sometime after the time frame of Roger's execution that this happens, because that's kind of when Dragon fully forms the Revolutionary Army and everything. And then we cut ahead to like much more closer to current timeline, where we have Garp yelling at Aokiji again, and this is like Aokiji either once he is an admiral or very soon. Yeah, it's gonna be an admiral, I think, as it gets mentioned in a moment. And like he's got like his his sleep mask on his head and everything, and Garp is just like grabbing him out. It's like, now my grandson says he's gonna be a pirate. I won't stand for it. He's like so angry, and Aokiji is just like, why are you telling me this? Why? What does this have to do with me? Is kind of the look on his face. And then we have it like like another bits where we just see like some of the text and everything like that. It's like, Kuzan, let's go get a bite to eat. I'm an admiral now. Remember, I'm busy. It's like, some tea then. Come on. So it's just like Garp clearly warmed up to Aokiji throughout the course of the time frame. And some of the things that we see, of course, because later on, or much earlier on in the story, when we see at the end of the post Enies Lobby arc, when the Straw Hats are leaving Water 7, Aokiji is like pitching a ride on Garp's ship to go back to Marineford. And like, he's just kind of like talking to Garp like they're, old friends, because they are. And Garp had mentioned to Aokiji that he had a grandson that was a pirate, and that's kind of like how he figured out who Luffy was when he met Luffy at Long Ring Longland and everything. So we get some other information there. And like we just kind of see bits of this relationship. But also one of the things that we saw in like previous flashbacks um is when Aokiji and Garp were talking about the fact that like, oh, Garp, you got offered a promotion again to become, admiral or fleet admiral or whatever. Why didn't you take it? I just think you're so cool. And Garp's like, Garp's answer is of course no, because I don't want to be under the direct thumb of the celestial dragons. And so we've seen that multiple times when it comes to Garp and everything. So we've seen hints of their relationship over the years, and now we get a little bit more of like where the impetus of that came from. And so Aokiji back to present, we have Aokiji is like, you have a habit of raising enemies. Yeah. And then Garp is like, well, we're through, my boneheaded pupil. And then we just have it that both of them have their fist hockeyed up and probably using some amount of Conqueror's hockey, given the amount of like black lightning that we see coming off of it, but definitely a good amount of armament hockey. And they're, punching each other in the face and everything. And there's like a good explosion that happens because of it. Big explosion. They both get knocked back. Kobe, Helmeppo, and Groose all run over to where Garp is, and Garp's kind of on the ground, like rubbing his head and everything. And then we have it that the island starts laughing again. Vala Pizarro starts laughing again with his control over the island. And he's like, you bastards are not getting away. This is Hachinoshu. You shouldn't have poked the pirate hive if you don't want to get swarmed. You think your friends are safe just because they set sail? Don't underestimate my island fruit. And we see this thing where we cut back to the ship, Garp ship, that's sailing away. And we cut to where we see Hibari, who has now been fully defrosted. She's probably still very cold because she's still like shivering and everything like that. And she's just like, I was useless. I'm sorry. I got in the way again. And Kujaku actually is kind of like consoling her and comforting her. It's like, no, you weren't. She did her job the way she was supposed to in regards to their, setup with like her flower gun and everything. Don't worry about that. We're just glad you're safe and everything. And then we see Vala Pizarro just kind of like forming out of the island, and we see this, it's like this big 2-page spread setup where we see like a giant hand coming out of the island. Because, this makes perfect sense. We saw Pika do similar things at Dressrosa where he would form himself into the rock and then, reach out his arms and smash and grab and punch and stuff like that. So Vala Pizarro being able to do this type of thing makes perfect sense because the island fruit is clearly the leveled up version of like the stone fruit. So that makes perfect sense. And so Vala Pizarro is like reaching his hand out, and he's like, we see him talking, and it's like probably like magnified even more because of the power. And he's like, it's always Blackbeard this, Blackbeard that, Teach did this, Teach did this. I'm going to be the headline now. And it's, and he's just like, he's ready to like smash the ship. And he's like, he's like, the headline tomorrow morning will be Vice Admiral Garp and his squad of rising stars fails to rescue the hero Captain Kobe. Vala Pizarro, 4th captain of the Blackbeard Pirates, used his awesome new power to crush their foolish plan. So we're getting this instance where it's just like, his intention is to like, just reach over and then smash the ship into the water. And given the fact that, well, Kujaku's a devil fruit user, she's on the ship. Tashigi is not, Hibari is not, but Hibari is still recovering from being frozen, so I highly doubt she's going to be exceedingly useful. Some of the other Marines that we saw in the background, I don't think they have any devil fruit powers, but again, we could be wrong. So I guess they could possibly survive in certain cases. And they just have to make sure that, like, Kujaku doesn't drown and Hibari doesn't drown and everything, depending on how much they would survive the wreckage anyway. And we see Kobe shouting of like, no, please don't do that. There's innocent civilians on the ship. Which I would, okay. First of all, Kobe, I love you, but Avala Pizarro does not care about the fact that there are innocent civilians on this ship. He does not give one cat's lick whether or not there are civilians on this ship. They had those civilians tied up as slaves. Yeah, so some of them happen to survive and they can dig them out of the water. They will probably still try to sell them again because that's what their intention was in the first place. And then they'll just have a bunch of Marines that they can use as hostages as well, including you again. So that's the possibility there. Second of all, I would like to hope that anyone that Garp has working for him on his ship, or that are these members of Sword, I would hope that they would be willing to try to make sure that the different civilians that are on the ship, that are the former slaves that had been captured, and that they are the would-be slaves that Blackbeard had captured, and hopefully taking them and trying to keep them safe. Tashigi definitely would. Tashigi definitely would put their safety above her own. But then we get to the last panel of the chapter where we have Garp, who has not gotten up yet, and he's like, don't lose your head. Justice will prevail. And of course, next week we have a new chapter. I think it also said that there is going to be, because of the 26th anniversary, that there is going to be a color spread for the One Piece chapter this time around for next week. So that'll be nice. We'll see what that color spread ends up being. So first off, I didn't get to read the chapter fully until this morning because I kept trying to get it to load on any of the sites that I try to look at for the chapter, and none of them would load it, so I didn't get to read it until this morning. Also, I always make sure that I don't watch anybody else's reviews before I record my own, to make sure that I don't intentionally copy anybody. I don't like doing that. But in regards to this, I like that we got some more of this backstory in regards to like Garp and Aokiji for, Kuzan and stuff, for like that relationship, and how that relationship may have affected some of, like Aokiji's relationship with Saul, and then what happened with Robin and O'Hara, and, him letting the Straw Hats go on Long Ring Lawnland and stuff like that, and how that affects some of those different relationships that we see down the line because of this relationship that, Aokiji has with Garp. And he might be of the mind of like, well, Garp's grandson, Luffy is Garp's grandson. And the little bits that he's heard about him from some of the intel that they would have gotten from like what happened at Alabasta and everything, may have been that Aokiji's like, okay, well, he seems to be somewhat of a good kid, and he was willing to protect Robin even after I told them the bad stuff. He was still willing to protect Robin, so I think the kid's a good kid. I'm still of the hope that Aokiji is somehow a member of Sword, or at the very least, maybe not a member of Sword, but at the very least is still somewhat loyal enough to Garp. But again, this might be kind of like a Snape Dumbledore situation, because, Aokiji needs to prove to Blackbeard that he is on his side, and one of the ways in doing that would be either to seriously kill Garp, or to just straight up kill Garp, or seriously injure him enough to the point where they can keep Garp as a hostage, or that Aokiji looks like he did everything he could, but Garp and the others still managed to escape. But Garp got very badly injured in the process. And Aokiji can only do so much in certain areas with that. And Aokiji might be knocked out at the moment, or he might get up, and we'll see what happens. And maybe we'll get another flashback at some point in time that does a little bit more explanation of that. Obviously, I do not want, Tashigi and Hibari and Kujaku and the civilians and everything like that are on the ship, on Garp's ship right now. Obviously, I don't want any of them to be hurt. But I'm trying to think of like what could happen, because like this is happening at the same time that stuff is happening with Egghead. So it's like a bunch of those ships are on their way to Egghead Island right now, and unless a ship gets a call or something like that, they're not going to be able to show up and do too much to try to stop Avala Pizarro. I mean, it just looks like he's just going to go whack and bye-bye Garp's ship. So I don't really know exactly what we're going to see with that. We're going to have to wait and find out next week, I guess. Next week on One Piece. Um, okay, I know that I'm pretty sure that somewhere on the internet someone has probably already made this joke, but like, with the anime we get like kind of like the previews from like next week type of thing for like the next episode. I sometimes wish that the chapters that like at the end of the chapter Oda would just have like another page that would just be like an additional page that's just like tiny little panels of like clips of like the next chapter. So that way we could like see them, and then we would have so many more theories that would come out of that as to like, this person showed up, that happened, what happened, wait, what's going to happen, what happened, you know. That would be kind of fun, but it would probably also just make us go insane very quickly, for theorists and everything like that. So I'm hoping someone either shows up to help them, or because I'm trying to think, because like as strong as Tashigi is, and as strong as she's, improved herself, I don't see her being able to stop this giant hand of an island coming down and squashing the ship. Again, Kujaku is kind of the same way. I don't know if her whip fruit powers are going to be able to work on that type of a thing. Because we don't know how it affects like living humans. We know it affects like inanimate objects, but at this point in time, where does the line end between, Avala Pizarro being an island that he is controlling and being a person? And if he wasn't in control of the island, would she be able to still make him, still make the part of the island move? Or if he, even though he is in control of the island, could she still like whip his hand and make it like stop or something or whatever? But even then, by the time it would get close enough, it probably would be too late for her to be able to do anything. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. Those are just my thoughts there. So I'm really happy that the chapters are back. Yay. I don't blame Oda for wanting to take breaks at times. That is perfectly understandable. I would love to be able to take a month-long break from my actual job where I get paid. But that involves me not having money. So, that type of job. So I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.